Listen closely, my friends. There is a version of you that has already stopped bleeding from other people's words. He exists right now, in this exact second, calm while you are still replaying a sentence someone threw at you 3 days ago. He is not colder than you. He is not luckier than you. He simply stopped signing for packages he never ordered. Because that is what an insult is. A package. Someone drops it at your door, and you have a choice nobody ever taught you that you have. You can leave it on the porch, or you can drag it inside, unwrap it, and arrange your whole evening around it. Most people don't know there was ever a choice. They think the hurt was delivered directly into their chest. No signature required. So they carry other people's leftover anger home like it's their own luggage, and they wonder, years later, why they feel so heavy. Here is what almost nobody will tell you. Rome was not run by men who never got insulted. It was run for stretches of its history by men who got insulted constantly, in the Senate, in the streets, in letters written specifically to wound them, and simply declined to answer the door. Not because they didn't feel the knock. Because they understood something that will take you the next 40 minutes to fully absorb. The second you react, you have already lost something more valuable than the argument. You have lost the one territory that was supposed to be yours alone, the only property in your entire life that no army, no lawsuit, no cruel comment section could ever legally seize, your own response. So let's be honest about where you actually are right now. Somebody said something last week, and it's still living in you, rent-free, eating your focus, ruining your sleep, changing your tone with people who did nothing wrong. That's not sensitivity. That's an eviction you never filed. And today we're filing it, line by line, lesson by lesson, until there's nothing left of that tenant but an empty room. Before we go further, if any part of this is already landing somewhere true, do one thing for me. Hit subscribe, not for my sake. I don't need it. Do it because the next person who needs to hear this at 2 a.m, wide awake and furious over something small, deserves to find it too. That's the only favor I'll ask of you today. The first thing you need to understand is older than Rome, older than Greece, older than the word Stoicism itself. Musonius Rufus, the teacher who shaped Epictetus before Epictetus ever taught a single student of his own, used to argue that philosophy which doesn't change behavior isn't philosophy at all. It's decoration for people who like the sound of wisdom more than the discomfort of practicing it. So we're not decorating today. We're going to take apart the exact mechanism that lets other people operate your nervous system from a distance, and we're going to hand the controls back to the only person who was ever supposed to hold them. And we're going to do that through 10 powerful Stoic lessons, each one exposing another reason people can disturb your peace and showing you how to take that power back. Stay until the final lesson, because that's where everything comes together. The goal was never to stop feeling. It was to stop being owned by what you feel. Lesson 1. Every offense requires your signature. Every offense you have ever felt required your signature. That sounds impossible when you're in the middle of it, because an insult doesn't feel like a choice. Someone says the words, your body reacts, your jaw tightens, your chest heats up, and your mind immediately starts preparing a response. But there is a tiny space between what someone says and what you feel, and inside that space, your mind quietly decides what those words mean about you. And that decision is where your real power begins. Think about two people hearing the exact same criticism from the same person in the same room with the same tone. One walks away annoyed for 5 minutes and then forgets about it. The other replays the conversation for 3 days, adding meanings that were never spoken, imagining what everyone must think of them, and building an entire argument inside their head. Same words, same speaker, completely different suffering. So what changed? Not the event, the interpretation. Epictetus understood this distinction long before modern psychology gave it different names. He taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. Read that again. Not what happened, what you decided it meant. Someone ignores your message, and your mind says, "They don't respect me." Someone corrects you, and your mind says, "They're trying to embarrass me." Someone disagrees with you, and suddenly the disagreement becomes a threat to your identity. The event was small, your interpretation turned it into a war, and here's where this becomes uncomfortable. The next time you feel that familiar jolt, the tight jaw, the hot chest, the urge to immediately type a response, don't ask, "Why did they do this to me?" Ask something far more dangerous. What did I just decide this means about me? Because that question forces you to look at the part of the reaction nobody else can control. And once you start noticing that part, you'll discover something even more important. The person who triggered your reaction may not have created your anger at all. They may have simply pressed a button that was already there. Lesson 2. Anger is an old wound. Anger feels like it belongs to the person standing in front of you. They interrupted you, ignored you, disrespected you, embarrassed you, and suddenly your entire body reacts as if something enormous has happened. But sometimes the person in front of you is not the real target of your anger. They are simply the person who touched something that was already hurting. The reaction feels new, but the wound may be much older than the situation you're reacting to. Think about your specific triggers. Maybe being interrupted makes you furious. Maybe being ignored makes you spiral. Maybe criticism in front of other people feels unbearable. Maybe someone taking control of a conversation instantly makes you defensive. Notice something strange. These reactions are rarely random. The things that trigger you most often point toward the things your mind has learned to protect most aggressively. That's why one person can insult you and you barely care, while another person can say one harmless sentence and suddenly you're thinking about it all night. The words aren't equal because the wounds underneath them aren't equal. Chrysippus, one of the major architects of Stoic philosophy, argued that emotions such as anger are connected to judgments. We don't simply experience anger as though it were weather passing over us. We participate in the meaning our mind gives the event, and that changes the question completely. Instead of asking, "Why are they making me so angry?" you begin asking, "What does this situation touch inside me that makes my reaction so much larger than the moment itself?" That question is harder because it takes away the easy villain, but it also gives you something the villain never could: a place to begin changing. Imagine someone leaves you on read for 6 hours. The event is simple: no reply. But your mind can turn that silence into a courtroom. They don't respect me. I've become unimportant. They must be talking to someone better. Maybe I said something wrong. Within minutes, you're no longer reacting to silence. You are reacting to an entire story your mind created around the silence. And the frightening part is that the story can feel so real that you forget it was never evidence. Seneca's warning that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality becomes painfully relevant here. The present moment touches the wound, but your imagination keeps pressing on it long after the moment is gone. So the next time anger rises, Don't immediately ask how to get rid of it. Study it. Ask what happened, what you felt, and what that feeling seemed to say about you. Was it really about the interruption, or did being interrupted make you feel invisible? Was it really about the criticism, or did criticism make you feel worthless? Was it really about being ignored, or did being ignored awaken the fear that you don't matter? Because once you find the wound underneath the trigger, the person who triggered you stops looking like your enemy and starts looking like an accidental messenger. And that realization leads directly into the next lesson, because sometimes the people who irritate you most are revealing something about you that you desperately don't want to see. Lesson 3. What irritates you may be revealing you. There is a reason certain people can walk into a room and irritate you before they have even done anything directly to you. The arrogant person, the attention seeker, the person who constantly talks about their achievements, the lazy co-worker, the relative who always expects something from everyone else. Sometimes the irritation is completely justified, but sometimes the intensity of your reaction tells you something the other person's behavior doesn't. The more disproportionate your reaction becomes, the more worth asking what exactly inside you is being touched. Because here's an uncomfortable possibility. The trait you hate in someone else may represent something you fear becoming, something you secretly wish you possessed, or even something you occasionally do yourself but have given a more flattering name. You call someone arrogant, but where have you confused confidence with superiority? You call someone selfish, but where have you protected your own interests and called it being realistic? You call someone weak, but where have you hidden your own vulnerability because admitting it would threaten the image you've built? Sometimes the person irritating you isn't exposing their character to you, they're exposing your blind spot to you. This does not mean every person who annoys you is secretly a reflection of yourself. That would be another form of shallow thinking. Some people genuinely behave badly, and recognizing that doesn't require you to become blind or passive. The Stoic move is more precise. Before giving someone else complete ownership of your emotional state, investigate your own reaction. Ask yourself, why did this particular behavior hit me so hard? Why this person? Why this moment? Because the answer may reveal an insecurity, an unmet desire, a fear, or a part of yourself you've been avoiding for years. And here's where this becomes powerful. The moment you can look at an irritating person and extract information instead of immediately reacting, the relationship between you and that person changes. Their arrogance can become a reminder to examine your own ego. Their need for approval can make you question where you still seek validation. Their carelessness can force you to notice where you use busyness as an excuse for your own carelessness. You don't have to admire them. You don't have to tolerate bad behavior. You simply refuse to waste the encounter by learning nothing from it. So the next time someone gets under your skin, don't just ask, "What's wrong with them?" Ask the question that requires far more courage. What is this reaction showing me about myself? Sit with the answer long enough for it to become uncomfortable. Because sometimes the reason a person has so much power to disturb you isn't because they are powerful at all. It's because they accidentally found a door inside you that you never knew was unlocked. And once you find that door, the next lesson will show you something even more surprising. You don't always need to win the argument to win the situation. Lesson 4. Silence is not surrender. Most people think strength means having the perfect response. They believe if someone insults them, they must answer. If someone lies about them, they must correct the story. If someone disrespects them, they must immediately prove they cannot be disrespected. But the Stoics saw something deeper. The moment you feel forced to respond to everything, you have already allowed someone else to choose your behavior for you. Your opponent speaks and you move. They provoke and you react. They change their tone and you change yours. At that point, who is really controlling the situation? There is a kind of silence that comes from fear, and there is another kind that comes from complete command of yourself. They may look identical from the outside, but internally they are worlds apart. Fearful silence says, "I don't know what to do." Disciplined silence says, "I know exactly what I could do, and I'm choosing not to." That distinction changes everything. The Stoic does not remain quiet because he has nothing to say. He remains quiet because his emotions do not get to decide when his mouth opens. And sometimes the most powerful response is the one you had every opportunity to give, but deliberately refused to. Think about how many arguments in your life became worse because you answered while angry. One sentence became 5. 5 became an hour. Suddenly you're defending things nobody accused you of, explaining yourself to someone who wasn't listening, and saying words that cannot be taken back. The original problem may have been small, but your reaction gave it a second life. You thought you were defending your dignity, but you were actually feeding the conflict with your attention. The Stoic asks a different question. Does responding improve this situation, or am I simply trying to relieve the discomfort of being challenged? That question can save you years of unnecessary conflict. Because sometimes you don't want to respond because a response is necessary. You want to respond because silence feels unbearable. You want them to know you were right. You want them to regret what they said. You want the last word because, somewhere inside, you believe the last word will restore your peace. But if your peace depends on winning an argument, then the other person still owns the key to your peace. Real composure begins when you can walk away without receiving the apology, the agreement, or the final word you thought you needed. The Stoics understood that you do not have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to defend yourself against every opinion. And you certainly don't have to step onto every stage someone builds specifically to provoke you. Sometimes walking away isn't losing the battle. It is refusing to enter a battle that was never worthy of your mind. But there is a deeper level to this, because staying calm when nothing hurts is easy. The real test comes when something hurts deeply, and you still refuse to become someone you don't respect. That is where the next lesson begins. Lesson 5. Endurance is not becoming unaffected. Real strength is not becoming a person who never feels pain. It is becoming a person who can feel the pain without allowing it to redesign their entire personality. There is a difference between numbness and steadiness. Numbness says, "I will stop caring so nothing can hurt me again." Steadiness says, "I will allow myself to feel this completely, but I will not let this feeling decide who I become." And that distinction is where real Stoic strength begins. Because when someone hurts you deeply, the easiest response is to build armor. You become colder. You trust less. You stop expecting anything from anyone. You tell yourself you don't care anymore, when underneath that statement is often a person who cares so much that they are terrified of being hurt again. But emotional numbness is not freedom. If you have to shut down your heart to remain peaceful, then the pain is still controlling you. You have simply changed the way it controls you. The Stoic ideal was never to pretend that injustice doesn't hurt, Marcus Aurelius could be surrounded by betrayal, illness, political pressure, death, and uncertainty, and still return to the same fundamental question: what kind of person will I be in response to this? That is the question that separates pain from identity. Something can happen to you without becoming you. Someone can betray you without turning you into a bitter person. Someone can disrespect you without teaching you to disrespect everyone else. Your suffering may explain your reaction, but it does not have to become your character. Think about a building standing through a violent storm. The wind is real. The pressure is real. The structure moves under the force, but the foundation does not surrender its position. That's what endurance actually means. Not nothing affects me. It means something affected me and I remained myself. You can cry and still be strong. You can be disappointed and still be disciplined. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can be hurt without handing your future personality to the person who hurt you. And this is where most people make the mistake. They think healing means reaching a point where nothing bothers them anymore. But what if the goal isn't to become impossible to hurt? What if the goal is to become impossible to control through hurt? That's a completely different level of strength. Because once you understand that, pain stops being a command and becomes information. It tells you something happened. It does not tell you what you must become because of it. So the next time life hits a place you thought was finally healed, don't ask, why am I still affected by this? Ask, can I remain myself while I am affected by this? That is the real test. Not whether the storm arrives, but whether you surrender your identity when it does. And once you can remain yourself in the middle of pain, another question becomes unavoidable. Who gave other people the authority to decide whether you are guilty, worthy, respected, or enough in the first place? That's where the next lesson takes us. Lesson 6. Nobody can convict you without your jury. There is a courtroom inside your mind that most people never realize they built. Someone criticizes you, rejects you, misunderstands you, or speaks badly about you, and suddenly you put yourself on trial. You become the accused, they become the prosecutor, and your imagination becomes the jury. You replay every mistake you've ever made, every insecurity you've ever hidden, and every moment you wish you could take back, and then you let one person's opinion deliver the verdict. But here's the question. Who gave them the authority to judge the value of your entire life? Think about how easily we allow other people's opinions to become evidence against ourselves. Someone calls you unsuccessful, and suddenly you question your entire career. Someone doesn't choose you, and suddenly you question your worth. Someone laughs at your ambition, and suddenly the dream you've carried for years feels embarrassing. One person's opinion enters your mind as a sentence, and you leave it there long enough for it to become a belief. But an opinion is not a verdict. Rejection is not proof. Criticism is not a definition. And someone's inability to recognize your value does not magically remove that value. The Stoics understood something brutally simple. You can be judged by everyone and still refuse to condemn yourself. Your reputation belongs partly to other people because you cannot control what they say about you, but your character belongs to you. That's why the Stoic doesn't spend his entire life trying to control the courtroom outside him. He builds a stronger courtroom inside himself. He asks, did I act with integrity? Did I do what I believed was right? Did I betray my own principles just to be accepted? If the answer is no, then someone else's verdict can remain exactly where it belongs, with them. And this is where approval becomes dangerous. Because once you become dependent on other people's approval, you don't simply want them to like you. You begin modifying yourself to prevent them from disapproving of you. You soften your opinions. You hide your ambitions. You tolerate disrespect. You say yes when you mean no. You become whatever version of yourself receives the least resistance. And eventually, you may discover something terrifying. You spent years becoming acceptable to people who were never responsible for your identity in the first place. So the next time someone judges you, pause before defending yourself. Ask one question: if nobody applauded me, would I still believe I did the right thing? If the answer is yes, you're standing on something deeper than approval. And if the answer is no, you've just discovered where your freedom is leaking. Because the moment you stop requiring everyone else to agree with your worth, something changes inside you. You stop performing for the jury. And once you stop performing, you finally become dangerous to anyone whose power depended on your need for their approval. Lesson 7. Stop carrying weight that was never yours. There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix, because your body is resting while your mind is still carrying people. You carry someone's opinion of you, someone's disappointment, someone's anger, someone's betrayal, someone's expectations, and sometimes even someone's refusal to understand you. You wake up in the morning, and before the day has even begun, you're already carrying emotional luggage from yesterday. The strange part is that some of those bags were never yours to begin with. Think about how often you replay another person's behavior, trying to understand why they did it. Why did they lie? Why did they change? Why didn't they appreciate you? Why did they treat someone else better? Why couldn't they see what you were trying to do? You keep asking questions that have no answer because you're trying to control something that exists completely outside your control. And every unanswered question becomes another weight you place on your own mind. The Stoics understood that peace begins when you stop demanding that reality give you the explanation you wish it would give you. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent. It means learning the difference between responsibility and emotional ownership. You are responsible for how you treat someone. You are responsible for your promises, your choices, your mistakes, your character, and the way you respond when someone hurts you. But you are not responsible for making another person understand you. You cannot force someone to appreciate your sacrifice, recognize your intentions, regret what they did, or suddenly become the person you needed them to be. The moment you accept that, an enormous amount of mental noise disappears. And sometimes the person you need to forgive isn't even the person who hurt you. Sometimes you need to forgive yourself for continuing to carry the event long after it ended. You keep reopening the same wound because part of you believes that letting go means saying what happened was acceptable. It doesn't. Letting go is not approval. It is refusing to keep paying for something that already happened. You can remember the lesson without carrying the punishment. You can acknowledge the betrayal without rebuilding your identity around being betrayed. You can accept that someone failed you without spending the rest of your life waiting for them to make it right. So tonight, think about the emotional weight you're carrying and ask yourself one brutal question. Is this actually mine? Is their opinion yours? Is their anger yours? Is their regret yours? Is their inability to understand you yours? If the answer is no, stop picking up what they keep leaving at your door. Because the moment you stop carrying what belongs to other people, you create space for something you've been missing for years, your own life. And now we have to take this even deeper, because putting the weight down once is not enough. You have to train your mind so you stop picking it up again. Lesson 8. Train your composure before the real test. Most people wait until the moment of provocation to try to become calm. They wait until someone insults them, until a relationship breaks, until someone disrespects them, until life takes something away, and then they expect their mind to suddenly behave like a trained mind. But composure does not begin during the storm. It is built in the moments when nothing is happening. The reaction you have under pressure is usually the result of what you practiced when you were comfortable. That means every small irritation in your ordinary day is an opportunity to train. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A message doesn't get answered. Someone interrupts you. A stranger is rude. A plan changes at the last minute. These moments look insignificant, but psychologically they are repetitions. You can either practice the old pattern, tension, anger, reaction, or you can create a new one. Every time you feel the trigger and choose not to obey it, you are teaching your nervous system that discomfort is not an emergency. This is why Stoic practice was never supposed to remain inside a book. Philosophy had to become behavior. Musonius Rufus argued that philosophy that doesn't change how you live is merely decoration, and that's the standard we need here. You don't become calm by understanding the word calm. You become calm by repeatedly standing in situations that invite a reaction and practicing a different response. The small moments are the training ground for the moments that will actually matter. Try something the next time irritation appears. Don't immediately fix it, explain it, or escape it. Notice the physical reaction first. Feel your jaw tightening. Notice your breathing changing. Watch the urge to respond rise inside you without immediately acting on it. Give yourself a few seconds where you do absolutely nothing. Those seconds may look meaningless from the outside, but internally they are where the old version of you and the disciplined version of you are fighting for control. And eventually, something strange happens. You begin noticing the trigger before it becomes a reaction. Then you notice the reaction before it becomes behavior. And finally, you reach the point where the emotion can exist without automatically receiving your obedience. That is what training your composure really means. You are not trying to prevent life from testing you. You're making sure that when the test arrives, it meets a version of you that has already practiced. But there is an even harder test ahead, because staying composed when life annoys you is one thing. Remaining composed when life takes something you deeply love is where Stoic philosophy becomes real. Lesson 9. Prepare your mind for loss. Most people don't fear loss itself as much as they fear the moment reality proves that something they loved was never fully theirs to control. We become attached to people, relationships, status, money, health, reputation, plans, even the version of the future we have imagined 100 times. Then, when life takes one of those things away, we don't just lose the thing. We feel as if reality has violated an agreement we never actually made. But the Stoics trained themselves to remember a brutal truth. Everything outside your character is temporary, borrowed, and vulnerable to change. This doesn't mean you should love less. It means you should love without pretending you possess. When you deeply value someone, appreciate them while they are here, instead of secretly demanding that life guarantee their presence forever. When something is going well, enjoy it without convincing yourself it cannot end. Because the moment you understand that nothing external comes with a permanent guarantee, gratitude becomes deeper, not weaker. You stop saying, "This must never change," and start saying, "I'm grateful that I have this while I do." The reason this matters is that attachment can quietly turn into fear. You start checking, controlling, worrying, predicting, and imagining every possible way something could disappear. You think you're protecting what you love, but you're actually allowing the fear of losing it to steal the experience of having it. You can spend so much energy preparing for tomorrow's loss that you completely miss today's possession. The Stoic does not wait until something is gone to recognize its value. He trains himself to appreciate its presence precisely because he knows its presence is not guaranteed. And this is where the practice becomes uncomfortable. Imagine losing the thing you currently take for granted, not to create panic, but to remove the illusion of permanence. Your freedom, your reputation, your relationship, your comfortable routine, even your current position in life. Ask yourself quietly, if this disappeared, what would still remain that nobody could take from me? Your character, your judgment, your ability to choose your response. That question strips away everything temporary until you finally see what the Stoics were protecting all along. Because when you stop demanding permanence from temporary things, loss changes its meaning. It can still hurt. It can still break your heart. But it no longer has the power to convince you that your entire life has been destroyed. You grieve what left without surrendering everything that remains. And that is the final preparation for the last lesson, because once you understand what can be lost and what cannot, you are ready to discover the ultimate form of emotional freedom, feeling everything life gives you without allowing any of it to own you. Lesson 10. The goal is not to stop feeling, but to stop being owned. The deepest form of Stoic strength is not becoming so cold that nothing can hurt you. It is becoming so grounded that nothing can use your emotions to make you betray yourself. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel grief without becoming hopeless. You can feel rejection without deciding you're worthless. You can feel fear without allowing fear to choose your next move. The emotion can arrive fully, and still, when it asks for the steering wheel, you can say no. Because that's the real battle we've been talking about from the beginning. Someone speaks, and something inside you moves. Someone leaves, and something inside you collapses. Someone disrespects you, and suddenly you feel the need to prove yourself. But the Stoic doesn't ask, how do I make sure nobody ever hurts me again? That's impossible. The better question is, how do I make sure pain never gets to decide who I become? That question changes the entire game. Think about everything we've uncovered. You learned that an offense requires your signature. You learned that anger can expose an old wound. You learned that irritation can reveal blind spots. You learned that silence can be stronger than reaction, that endurance means remaining yourself while affected, that other people's judgments don't have to become your verdict, that emotional weight must be separated into what is yours and what isn't, that composure is trained before the storm, and that everything external is temporary. All 10 lessons point toward one territory, your response. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything outside yourself, you become harder to control. You no longer need the apology to move forward. You no longer need everyone to understand you. You no longer need the last word. You no longer need revenge to prove that you were hurt. You can acknowledge what happened, learn what it came to teach you, and continue walking without dragging the person who hurt you into every room you enter. They may have caused the wound, but they don't get to write the rest of your story. So the next time someone tries to disturb your peace, remember this. You don't have to become emotionless. You don't have to become distant. You don't have to pretend you weren't hurt. Feel it, but don't surrender to it. Pause, observe, decide. Then respond as the person you want to be, not as the person your anger is demanding you become. Because real freedom isn't reaching a place where nothing can touch you. Real freedom is reaching a place where something can touch you deeply, and you still remain in command of yourself. So now you know what real emotional control actually looks like. It doesn't mean becoming cold. It doesn't mean pretending that nothing hurts. And it certainly doesn't mean allowing people to disrespect you without boundaries. It means something much deeper. You stop giving temporary events permanent control over your inner world. The next time someone insults you, remember the package. You don't have to sign for it. When anger rises, look beneath it and ask what wound it touched. When someone irritates you, investigate what they're revealing about you. When an argument demands your reaction, remember that silence can be a decision. When life hurts you, remain yourself while you're hurting. And when something leaves your life, remember that losing something external does not mean losing yourself. These are not just ideas to understand. They are decisions to practice. Because your peace is not something other people are supposed to protect for you. It is territory you have to learn to defend. And every time you refuse to react automatically, every time you choose your response instead of surrendering it to someone else, you take another piece of that territory back. So tomorrow, when life gives you the opportunity to lose your temper, and it will, pause for 1 second. Breathe. Ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? Not, what do they deserve? Not, how do I make them regret it? Not, how do I win? Just, who do I want to be? Because that question puts the decision back where it always belonged, with you. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. You cannot control who knocks on your door, what they bring with them, or what the world decides to take away. But you can decide what you let inside. And once you truly understand that, people can still hurt you, but they no longer have to own you. If this video gave you something you needed to hear, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for the next one. Because the goal isn't to become someone who feels nothing. The goal is to become someone who cannot be controlled by everything he feels.